Welcome to DDRC members, staff, and guests. We ask for your patience during this meeting. Multiple staff members are present to make sure that the meeting runs smoothly and all applicants and citizens are able to communicate with the Commission at the appropriate time. The public will be able to participate using multiple methods. When participating, please provide your name for documentation purposes.
The public may participate in a number of ways: watching, emailing, phoning, or logging into the web session. If you're watching, you can stream the meetings through City TV, accessed at youtube.com/user/Columbia-SC-Government. If you're emailing, you may submit letters and statements to cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov leading up to and/or during the meeting, as this account will be monitored during the proceedings. Emails and letters will be read into the record. You can participate via phone calling 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 1993. If you're participating by phone, you'll receive 3 options. *1 will allow you to listen. *2 will allow you to record a voicemail message that may be read into the record. And *3 will allow a participant to be placed in a queue so that they may speak live when prompted. Please make sure your computer audio is muted if you're calling in live so we don't get feedback. And you can stream the proceedings at publicinput.com/COC-DDRC-May 2022. And I will call the roll. Mr. Broom?
Here.
Ms. Jaco?
Here.
Mr. Salibi?
Here.
And Mr. Wolf?
Here.
We have quorum.
In order to avoid ex parte communications, DDRC members are under strict instructions not to discuss cases under consideration with the public or with each other outside of the public forum. The meeting typically starts with staff calling the case, giving a summary of the project, and then calling on the applicant to present if they wish. Decisions are typically made in one evening. Decisions may be appealed within 30 days to a court of competent jurisdiction. Oaths will be administered individually as we hear either from applicants or from live speakers. Applicants with requests before the DDRC are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the DDRC or staff regarding request. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. Applicants may have 5 minutes to respond. Staff has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Excuse me, we have a few changes to the agenda. Under the regular portion of the historic agenda, 803 Maple Street /Lee Street, which is a request for a certificate of design approval for new construction in Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area, has been moved to the consent agenda as the applicants have agreed to staff recommendations and have asked for it to be placed on the consent agenda. And then 2620 Cardinal Street, a request for design approval for an addition in the Cottontown Bellevue Architectural Conservation District, has been withdrawn.
The DDRC uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. If a member of the DDRC or the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda, that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The DDRC then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Will staff please review the consent agenda?
Certainly. The consent agenda starts with 1211, 1211 and a half, 1213, 1213.5 Maple Street, which is a request for preliminary certification for the Bailey Bill in the Melrose Heights Oaklawn Architectural Conservation District. The next is 2020 Wheat Street, a request for design approval for an addition and exterior changes and for preliminary certification for the Bailey Bill in the Wales Garden Architectural Conservation District. The next is 734 Hardin Street, a request for design approval and a preliminary certification for the Bailey Bill for a National Register structure which falls within the 5 Points Design District. The next is 1224 Lincoln Street, a request for design approval and preliminary certification for the Bailey Bill in the West Gervais Historic Commercial District. And then 600 Hayward Street, a request for a certificate of design approval for an art installation at one of the guardhouses at the Olympia Mill, and this is an individual landmark. And then, of course, our last is the latest edition of 803 Maple Street / Lee Street, a request for a certificate of design approval for new construction in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area. I'm sorry, we also had 1015 Queen Street, which was added to the consent agenda. 1015 Queen Street, yes, 1015 Queen Street, a request for design approval for new construction in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area, 1004 through 1006 Lawrence Street, a request for preliminary certification for the Bailey Bill in the University Architectural Conservation District, and Shirley Street, a request for a certificate of design approval for new construction in the Melrose Heights Oaklawn Architectural Conservation District. And I think those are all. Yes, we had a lot. Let's go around.
All right, is there anyone from the DDRC that would like any item removed from the consent agenda as originally presented, plus moving the Maple Street to consent? Any concerns? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda as originally proposed, plus also moving the 803 Maple Street / Lee Street project? Please communicate by sending an email to cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov or communicate via phone by pressing *2 to leave a voicemail or *3 to speak in person. We will pause to allow communication from the public. No voicemails or emails? Jackie? Okay.
We don't have anything for the consent agenda at this time.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as amended and also the April minutes?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended and approval of the April minutes.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf? Yes. Motion passes.
All right, great. We're ready to move to the regular agenda. First case.
First case on the regular agenda is 2615 River Drive. This is a request for certificate of design approval for new construction in the North Main Corridor Overlay District. The proposal is for a 5-story, 56-unit residential building at the northwest corner of River Drive and Benton Street. The building is V-shaped with residential units above parking on the ground floor and some surface parking in the rear along the north property line. The project was before the DDRC in March and a decision was deferred by the commission to provide an opportunity for the applicant to address the items listed on the staff evaluation. The evaluation provided in the case packet is focused on the design changes in response to the March motion. And in the interest of time, I am going to skip to the staff recommendation, and then we have the applicant here to make a presentation about those changes. Staff recommends approval of the request conditional upon addressing the following items in order to substantially meet the North Main Corridor design guidelines. To work with staff on garage screening details to include plant material, irrigation, and the provision of murals to be coordinated with One Columbia and the adjacent neighborhoods. To provide additional articulation on the flat expanses of building wall on street-facing elevations. Provide a canopy to help define the base of the building and provide a sense of pedestrian scale at street level. Provide spandrel windows or other architectural features on the west end elevation to articulate the facade while maintaining privacy of adjacent residents. Work with staff through the encroachment process to ensure all right-of-way improvements meet city standards and defer any additional details to staff. And Parker Z, the developer, is here to present the changes that have been made and also to answer any questions.
Aye. Please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
I do. Name is Parker Z. I work with Woda Cooper Development.
And can you adjust that microphone just to make sure we can hear you?
Yeah, and if I could, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if everyone could speak up while at the podium, and staff and DDRC members, so we can record everything and hear everything, that would be helpful.
Name is Parker Z. I work with Woda Cooper Development. So thank you, commissioners, for welcoming me back since 2 months ago. Before starting on the presentation, I did want to clarify a couple items that I saw in some public comments. There was a couple comments calling into question the need for us to be at 56 units versus 40 units. The need for that does not come from the QAP language referred to that says a minimum 40 units. We actually received tax credits last fall or last winter. And in the QAP, it states, if the authority determines the development is not substantially the same as described in the original tax credit application, the development may not receive an allocation of tax credits. So because we applied at 56 units, it would become a substantial change if we were to change the number of units, to change what property we're developing on. That would result in a loss of funding. Such changes that wouldn't be substantial would be changes to design, so long as we stay within the general overall guidelines that we set forth in our application. One of the other items that was brought up at the last meeting in March was the desire to bring it from 5 stories down to 4 stories. We did look into that. There was additional QAP language that stated that parking must be on-site, it could not be off-site. So we weren't able to look to another off-site property. We could only look to adjacent properties, so that really limited the scope of where we were able to look in order to move parking in order to bring it down. So we unfortunately were not able to bring this down to 4 stories. With that, I will try to keep the presentation short and just walk through the changes from March. So this slide, it shows the common area on the first floor. It was changed a bit based on staff comments to activate the corner. We modified the community room on the corner to have a bigger presence on the corner, to have more frontage along both the river and Benton. There's also now a covered outdoor patio, so it creates a bit more interaction with the street front there in the corner. And I think there's also more storefront windows as a result. We also moved the community manager's office to be abutting the exterior wall on River Drive, which also helps activate there, whereas before, right on River Drive looking in, it would have been the mechanical room. Next slide. Another comment had to do with the architectural rhythms. What you'll see here is the before and after with the changes. Whereas before it was scattered between horizontal siding, vertical siding, fiber cement panel, and brick with no rhyme or reason to how high the brick went up. Now it's much more consistent rhythm that along the street frontage on both Benton and River, the brick goes all the way up to the second from top floor, with a top floor being fiber cement paneling to help create an accent with the brick. The parts of the exterior that have the balconies and sort of stick out is where we have horizontal siding to also help accent and create more rhythm. And we completely did away with the vertical siding. On the corner, you can see that we also added a pane of fiber cement to create a unique architectural element right there on the corner. This is the River Drive elevation before and after. Same general concept as the Benton Street elevation with the changes. But the other item I want to pull out of this slide is the changes to the garage frontage, whereas before we didn't go into detail on what the garage frontage will look like. Now we're showing that it's going to be a mix of vegetative screening as well as art murals. Based on the comment from staff, which we are happy to work with staff to resolve, is they'd like us to work with One Columbia to provide these art murals, and we'd be happy to do so. But the art murals will be on the portion of building that are closer to the sidewalk, and then the vegetative screening is more in the recessed portion of the garage. For the internal parking lot elevations, as well as the River Drive end elevation and Benton Street elevation, really we had not quite as much changes too. We tried to keep more rhythm on this as well, with the fiber cement paneling and the brick trying to go up to about the same height across instead of scattered about as it was last March. On the River Drive end elevation, we added a extra column of windows in the stairwell that you can see. In the Benton Street end elevation, we did not add windows to avoid overlooking into the single family, but after seeing staff comment, we'd be happy to add the spandrel windows to provide some architectural features and fenestration without having any visibility out of those windows and on overlooking the single-family residential. And this is just a architectural 3D rendering of the new updates. Another view of those same updates. And this slide shows an example of what the vegetative screening might look like. Of course, we're using brick instead of cement columns, so it will be slightly different, but has the same idea with there will be green vegetation up and down it, so it's not a direct view into the garage and to the cars that are in there. That's it. And yeah, we're along with the other comments mentioned by staff during the presentation. We're also happy to work with staff on addressing all other comments as condition of approval. With that, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, so, and you just said that there were no concerns with the other recommendations that are listed here?
No, none of those had any concerns to us.
Commissioners, anybody have a question? Follow up? Anybody? Okay, thank you. We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. You can email at cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov or go on the web at publicinput.com/cocddrc-May 2022. For those wanting to leave a voicemail or speak live, call 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 1993, then press star 2 to begin leaving the voicemail. If you would like to speak live, press star 3. We will hear comments from anyone who is here in person. Yeah, please come up to the microphone and state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Hi, yes, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Mary Williams. I do swear to tell the truth in these proceedings. Thank you for hearing from me today. I am a River Drive resident and a neighbor of this project. I, of course, want to start by saying that I wholeheartedly believe that affordable housing is absolutely necessary and appreciate the work that Woda Cooper has done to address some of the concerns that the neighborhood has had. Personally, I believe that this rendering is much better than what we've seen prior. However, there are still some concerns that the neighborhood has brought to the attention of the neighborhood at large. And then also I wanted to point one thing out in particular, and that would be, while I know that the standardization would trump design district implementation here as from what's happened in January, there's one thing that I did want to point out, and that's on page 7 of the North Main Design District overlay, and that is that all building facades and facades have to be perfectly parallel to North Main itself. This lot is more like an isosceles triangle, which leads me to believe that that would not be a compatible requirement with this type of building on this lot in particular. I do want to say that the implementation of sustainable and long-lasting housing solutions requires the integration of neighborhood support. As an Elwood member, as a River Drive resident, I don't currently see that support for this project, and that I hope that we'll take some of that into consideration.
Can I just ask staff to help clarify the point that was being made about page 7 of the design guidelines?
About the parallel.
Is that okay? I just want to make sure I knew exactly what she was referencing.
Yeah, so basically, they do say that the project should be parallel to North Main Street. And there was a little bit of an explanation at the beginning of the evaluation. Primarily, when North Main Street is referenced in the guideline, it's talking about the primary frontage. There are a couple of spurs off of North Main, such as River Drive and Monticello Road, where those roads are the primary frontage. It's just not a side street, so I mean, the project is parallel to the road frontages, so that is considered to be in compliance with that particular guideline.
Yep, just please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
Clayton King, and I do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I first want to applaud the developer for any effort to create affordable housing. It is sorely needed everywhere, and certainly in the height of a real estate boom, it would be helpful. That said, I would have a hard time characterizing River Drive as a side street. I live on River Drive. River Drive enjoys amazing traffic, particularly when there are issues on the interstate, and the redesign of Malfunction Junction, as we call it, is looming large. just this morning as I was sitting on my front porch at the corner of River and Union. At 8:30 in the morning, I counted 75 cars between the hours of 8:30 and 9 a.m. So this is not just a side street issue. River Drive is a fairly major road. That said, I've lived in Columbia and at my current address for 14 years. I am reasonably acquainted with the North Main guidelines, and my understanding is that the intent of those guidelines is to have construction and new projects that harmonize with a neighborhood. And as I was reading those guidelines this morning and looking at the overlay, I realized that, to the best of my knowledge, this is the only structure that follows those North Main guidelines that doesn't actually have a location on Main Street. There is a new small one-story building that's been put up at Confederate and Main Street that houses a hair salon and a restaurant. And it is very much in keeping with the North Main construction guidelines, and it fits there. This development looks to be more appropriately placed in the Vista, or some place where large monolithic parallel structures sit right on the street. But if you drive 2 blocks further down River Drive, you find nothing of the sort. While the renderings that were being shown are certainly improved over the original ones, there are still issues in terms of harmony. And as near as I can tell, the 3rd floor and above that should be pushed in or recessed 10 feet according to the guidelines doesn't seem to be. And so while I understand the financial issues involved and the funding issues, I think it's something that needs to be reconsidered. Do I still have 30 seconds or am I out? I'm done. I'm over 30 seconds. Well, then I won't try to talk about traffic.
Okay.
Thank
all
you.
right, Thank you. Yep, staff, any comment, clarifications?
Just to clarify one comment, I think that the comment that I had made about the primary frontage might have been misunderstood. So what it says, the North Main Corridor guidelines regularly refer to North Main frontage as it's the primary street in the district. River Drive is a secondary corridor, but is considered the primary street for properties within the district that front River Drive. So River Drive is being considered the primary frontage for this property, not a side street. Benton Street would be considered the side street frontage. And I agree that one comment, just to clarify, the height is a little bit confusing. When the North Main Corridor guidelines were adopted in 2010, the zoning at that time we didn't have neighborhood compatibility standards, which address how properties on commercial corridors abut residential properties. So there were some provisions written into those guidelines to try to address some of those adjacencies. When the new Unified Development Ordinance was adopted a couple of years ago, we now have neighborhood compatibility standards that are citywide that apply to all districts that abut protected lots, which are single-family residential districts. There is also a provision in there that says if there's ever a discrepancy between a guideline in an overlay district or the neighborhood compatibility, that the neighborhood compatibility is the guiding document. So it is a little bit confusing, but our zoning administrator has looked at this thoroughly, and the height and the step backs and so forth do meet the current requirements in the zoning ordinance.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Anybody else from the public want to speak on this case?
I did have a quick question for staff related to the most recent comments. One thing that the commenters referred to was the intent of the master plan for the North Main Corridor. And I believe it says something along the lines of that the mixed-use corridor should be compatible with the surrounding residential development. The staff's comments on the project don't really comment on that, or don't refer to that intent. Could you speak a little bit to that?
And that
if it
from
was
the
considered?
master plan
Yes.
language, yes. That's a great question. So the Villages of North Columbia master plan was a master plan for a very large geographical area of North Columbia that was adopted in 2005, I believe. And that is still a plan that is used as a guiding document for land use regulations. A master plan, however, is not a regulatory document, so it's not a zoning ordinance, and it's not a set of design guidelines that applies, specifically to specific development proposals. So the master plan was absolutely looked at and used as a guiding document when the zoning and the land use and the guidelines were implemented, but those are also very specific processes that include a lot of public meetings and deliberation. And in 2010, when the North Main Corridor guidelines were adopted, many more restrictive things were proposed during that process, and the guidelines that we ended up with were, that was what there was support for at that time. So they're not as restrictive as a lot of the urban design guidelines that we have, and that was just the climate at that time. So when a regulatory document, those are the actual things that regulate particular properties, and a master plan is always used as a guiding document, but it's a little bit of a broader brush, if you will, than specific zoning regulations that apply to this property.
Well, and just to comment on that, so I guess what you're saying is, to use an analogy, the master plan would be like the Constitution, whereas the guidelines are more like the statute, right? The rules, the specific rules that govern it, but the intent of the master guidelines should apply to the interpretation of the rules. So I guess it is the compatibility with the surrounding residential development something staff considered when they were reviewing this project?
That's always a consideration. We can't let an opinion about a specific development proposal, they have vested rights that are part of the zoning ordinance. So if it's somebody's opinion or interpretation that a specific proposal doesn't comply with the master plan, but it has vested rights in the zoning ordinance, that prevails. The zoning is basically allows for a maximum building envelope on that property. And I think too, it's just important to note, this is, not really a zoning discussion, but the zoning of the corridor, this section of River Drive and a lot of North Main is all a consistent zoning district, which is NAC. It's called Neighborhood Activity Center. Before that, it was MX1, which was a zoning district created just for this area. And before that, it was C1, which is a commercial district. For decades, the properties in this corridor have had height allowances of 50 to 75 feet. So the ability to build these buildings to that height has always been available. It just hasn't been proposed in this location. So I think that it may seem out of context because it's the first development that may be building to that height, but it is, not consistent with the city plans to say that this is too tall, because that's what the zoning, very recent zoning, has been written for.
Right, and I apologize if it seemed like I was referring to the height. I was referring more to the general compatibility with the surrounding residential development being, I guess, primarily single-family dwellings or smaller multifamily dwellings. This is a pretty large project.
I would argue that it's also a commercially zoned corridor adjacent to single-family residential districts, which have their own protections with neighborhood compatibility and with historic overlays. This property is not in the residential historic neighborhood. It's on a corridor adjacent to that, and we have those conditions throughout the city. And most of our master plans recommend that density occur on the corridors and not within the single-family neighborhood fabric. So that's, I think this is consistent with those plans as well.
Thank you.
Please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in these proceedings?
My name's Ivy Coleman, and I do. I don't know much about these committees and about these guidelines, but I know a lot about living in Elwood for a long time, because I'm getting old, apparently. And so I just wanted to, I appreciate you guys listening, but I just wanted to reiterate, neighborhood does not support this overall. And it's not because we are against low-income housing or affordable housing. If you take a look at our neighborhood, it is incredibly diverse. We have people with lots of money, people with phones that are too loud, people with lots of money, people with no money. We have gay, straight, and in between. We have black, white, Hispanic, everybody. And we're open to everybody. We are not open to this development as it is going to jam itself into our neighborhood. They have very little parking for the number of units that are going to be in this project. They have a building that does not reflect our neighborhood. They're knocking down a historic home or an older home that does fit our neighborhood to create this space. And really, it would be better suited in other places. There's a lot of room, for instance, on the Broad River Drive, a lot of buildings that are going unused. And it seems to me that it would be really a good idea to use those buildings or anywhere else where, we see that it would fit. But we have to have buy-in, we have to have support, we have to have the ability to safely get children to the already existing daycare center. There's talk of a school coming into the neighborhood, which will increase traffic and increase children in the streets. And we want to make sure it's all safe and well supported. And I urge you to consider whatever you can do to help us with this, because the goal of these guidelines, from my understanding, one of the goals is to support the neighborhoods and what's already there. And this doesn't. So thank you for listening.
Anybody else in person want to speak? Yeah.
My name is Danielle Sheely.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding? Thank you.
So I had a couple questions. The parapet that has been mentioned a number of times, does that cover 25% of the roof?
So these are questions for the developer?
Well,
Okay, put them out here and we'll figure out who to respond to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a question about the parapet that has been referenced, but I haven't seen drawings or any mention. If it covers 25% of the roof, then that would be considered part of the height requirement. With that parapet, would we still meet the height requirement? I also had a question about the 35-foot within 30 feet requirement on Benton Street. There is a residential directly across from the 45-foot section. So I had questions, are we still within that wiggle room? Because Benton Street's not a standard street width, as we are all aware. And finally, the standard is a 15-foot setback for parking. And it's 15 feet on some of the parking lot and 7.5 per the SPR packet that was submitted. So I just had a question about why there's a discrepancy in the setbacks in the parking lot. And finally, the minimum requirement of housing of 40 units. That 56 doesn't mean that they are locked into that forever. Reading the guidelines from housing, it's just they'd have to reapply. So yes, if they made a substantial change down to the 40 units, which is allowed under the SC housing guidelines, they would just have to go through the application process again. But that doesn't mean that it's forever impossible to do. It just means that it would have to be reapplied because the project would look different. And I agree. So those are my points, and I appreciate all your thoughtful questions and really looking at this project that will impact this development in this area going forward for the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would proper order be to see if the developer wants to respond to those specific questions right now?
We can certainly ask. I do have a couple of answers. I'm not sure about the parapet question. That may be a question for the architect, and also ultimately our zoning administrator will review the permit set of drawings and the zoning ordinance and ensure that everything is in compliance. I can't answer that question right now, but the architect might be able to. The 30-foot 5 height within 30 feet of a residential has been provided. There's actually I don't know if it's in this set, but there's a site plan that has dotted line showing the dimensions from the residential property line to those dimensions. So there's a line that indicates where that 30 feet is off of the residential lot, and it's still within the driveway. So,
So that has met the requirement?
correct.
Okay.
So it's within that zone of 30 feet.
Gotcha.
The building may not exceed 35 feet in height, so there is not building mass within that setback area. And then the 15-foot setback for surface parking applies to surface parking, but not to structured parking that's within the building setback, within the building itself. So as far as we've reviewed, that has been met.
Okay, so the second and third question that she asked is in the requirement, has been assessed. Does the developer, do you have any response for the applicant on that?
I believe
first
we
one?
have the architect on the phone. I don't know if they want to try to address that.
Unmute the architect, he's on the phone, and you can ask the architect the questions about the parapet.
Okay. Is there somebody on the phone?
Sorry, our internet's been quite slow, so.
Hi, this is David Maurer, the architect with Tightlands Design. Yeah, to address the parapet, it is
Sir,
just an
hold on a minute.
extension of the.
Sir, okay, one, I think you need to speak louder and clearer because I can barely hear you. So would you state your name again, and do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Yes, this is David Maurer. Can you hear me now?
A little better. It's
Is that
still
any
it's a
better?
little hard. Yeah. Maybe just go slower.
Yeah. Go to not the speakerphone. All right, I took it off speaker. This is David Maurer, the architect, and yes, I swear to tell the truth. Can you hear me better now?
Do y'all understand what he's saying? Okay, yes, proceed.
Okay, so to address the parapet issue, the parapet is nothing more than just the vertical extension of the exterior wall, and it does extend up high enough to be able to shield the mechanical units that are on the roof, and it is within the height restrictions that are required.
So staff, what was the Reader's Digest version of that?
I think he was referring to the fact that the parapet is there to screen any roof-mounted HVAC equipment, and as well as, you know, I guess the amount of the parapet being considered the height of the building. Again, that's something that that's part of the technical building permit review that our zoning administrator will look at. I don't know that, I mean, that may be a little bit of a detail that we won't address here, but that would certainly be required as part of the permit
Okay,
application.
so part of the city zoning permit process
Correct.
will verify that those three questions have been
Absolutely.
addressed and met?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Anyone else in person? Come on. Hi, please state your name.
No.
Oh. Sir, did you still have something to say? All right, turn it off. All right, now, please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in this
John
proceeding?
Wilkinson, and I do. My name is John Wilkinson. I'm serving as the president of the Elwood Park Neighborhood Association. I'd just like to read a brief statement from our neighborhood board. We understand that the developer has designed this within the new zoning and design requirements, and we appreciate their willingness to incorporate our feedback on most items and the adjustments they did make to the original designs. However, as has been stated, our neighborhood's primary concern remains the height and the setback from the adjacent single-story homes. We do acknowledge that they brought the height down to 4 stories as it moves down Benton Street, which does help ease the transition, but it is still a striking contrast to the adjacent homes. We're excited for new development in and around our neighborhood. We would just like to see it on more of a neighborhood scale. We're not sure if anything can be done at this point, but we would welcome any further reduction to the building height. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you coming up? Okay. Hi, please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Jennifer Glass, and yes, I swear to tell the truth. I spoke before you guys in the first meeting, and I'm a resident of Benton Street. My property, my home and business are adjacent to this project. And I, like my neighbors, believe we have a need for affordable housing, and I'm very invested in the neighborhood as having lived there for 20 years. I see this project as an opportunity to create housing that's a good addition to our community. Instead, I'm concerned that we're going to end up with a monstrosity that furthers the stigma and bias that's associated with affordable housing. Through my business relationships and my part in the community, I believe that we have a lot of very smart people on all sides of this. And I think if we defer this and re-examine lowering the number of units. I sell plants, I'm a landscaper. Sometimes I propose I want to sell somebody 150 plants and they only want 100. So the way I see it is they can go back to the drawing board and come up with a proposal that's 40 units rather than 56. I also think that the on-site parking requirements are something that as a community, citywide, it's a topic of the parking requirements. I think it's something that, again, if people came to the table, we could figure out a solution, which would also help bring the height of the building down because the entire first floor is parking. Thank you for listening.
Anybody else from the public present like to speak? We will hear any comments that have been received in writing.
Yep, I've got those. I have one from Caitlin Mahoney that came in today, and she says, I wanted to write to voice my support for the Benton Crossing development. I believe that gatekeeping a community is wrong, and I hope that the influx of new residents will bring more restaurants, bars, and retail stores to the area. I know that traffic is a major concern for a lot of my neighbors. However, I believe a more dense neighborhood will create opportunities to walk and bike and not rely on cars so much. I love this neighborhood and hope to share it with as many people as possible. Thank you. Our next email is from Emily Byrne. She is the president of the Elwood Community Citizens Organization, and she says, to whom it may concern, the Elwood, let's just call it ECHO, is encouraged by the influx of development and growth in our area, specifically along North Main Street. However, we request that the North Main Corridor Design Guidelines be applied and enforced for the proposed Benton Crossing project and all future developments that fall within the boundaries of this design guideline. Many Elwood and Elmwood Park residents have expressed concern about the height, 5 stories, of this proposed building. The North Main Corridor Design Guidelines specify the following requirements for buildings of such height as adjacent to sidewalks, buildings taller than 3 stories tall shall be recessed back at the 3rd floor or 45 feet from ground level, a minimum of 10 feet, end of quote. The renderings of the Benton Crossing project, however, do not appear to adhere to the requirement that the 3rd floor and above shall be recessed back from the 1st and 2nd floors. Another guideline requirement that we request be enforced is that a change in paving material shall be provided at locations where pedestrian and bicycle pathways intersect with automobile pathways and drives. This should apply to the primary driveway on River Drive and the emergency exit on Benton Street, as they both intersect with public sidewalks. 2 final North Main Corridor Design Guideline requirements that we request be enforced are entrances shall have direct access to the sidewalk/street and have strong entry architecture to ensure pedestrians can easily identify the entrance, end of quote. And mass of the building must be broken with regularly placed pilasters and other well-articulated architectural details. Balconies and other elements may be used to create variety and interest, yet remain integral to the overall design, end of quote. Based on designs we've been provided, it does not appear that the current proposed Benton Crossing project meets these requirements. ECHO looks forward to working with DDRC and our neighbors to ensure that new development along the North Main Corridor adheres to these guidelines as intended by the Villages of North Columbia Master Plan. Thank you, Emily Byrne, President. Our next email is from Molly Ironside, and it reads, "To the members of the DDRC, my name is Molly Ironside. I live on Benton Street, across from the proposed Benton Crossing project. I have observed some behavior from the current property owners that indicates to me the type of property managers you are considering for design approval today. The property has not been maintained since late 2021, a time frame that coincides with the closing of the property. Debris has been left in multiple places. Construction debris is often left on the street, and routine maintenance of mowing and trimming vegetation has not been completed. On more than one occasion, my neighbors have called code enforcement, which did not result in any resolution to these issues. I ask you to consider delaying or denying approval for this project until it can be shown that this organization will be a worthy addition to our community. Respectfully, Molly Ironside." And last, we have an email from Jason Glass, which reads, "The Benton Crossing tax credits were approved by the South Carolina State Housing Finance and Development Authority in 2021 as a 56-unit project. This application was made without neighborhood consultation or input, as shown by this market analysis that the developer prepared for the South Carolina Housing Authority in May 2021, which is based on a 56-unit project. I was first made aware of this project in August 2021. The Housing Authority guidelines for 2021 credits allowed for a maximum of 90 units and a minimum of 40 units. The 56 units that Benton Crossing claims is required for the tax credit is actually well above the minimum. He had included a link to a document and said, see Part 5 threshold participation criteria item N here. The state and federal housing tax credits allow that if a developer is not able to meet the specifications of the initial plan, a portion of the credit will simply be recaptured, meaning that the developer will not qualify for the full amount of the credit application. Before the DDRC approves this project, the applicant should at least consider and examine the alternative of a 40-unit development rather than stating that this is not permitted, which does not appear to be correct. Respectfully, Jason Glass. That is all we have.
Amy, we also have an email that we've received subsequent emails.
You've got some more? Okay. And one moment, if you would. Okay, yes, thank you. So I will read a list of names of folks who submitted comments that came to y'all before the meeting, so you've had an opportunity to read those already, but we just wanted to make sure people knew that they'd been received and read. Denise Jolly, Alexander Daly, David and Laurie Vaughn, Robin Scherer, Danielle McSwain-Sheely, and Jennifer Glass.
Okay, and I'm going to try and speak and read at the same time. So we have an email from Elizabeth Perkins that reads, "To whom it may concern, after a review of the North Main Corridor Design Guidelines, it appears the Benton Crossing project as currently proposed does not adhere to the guidelines. The North Main Corridor Design Guidelines specify the following requirement for buildings of such height. Adjacent to sidewalks, buildings taller than 3 stories tall shall be recessed back at the 3rd floor or 45 feet from ground level, a minimum of 10 feet, end quote. The renderings of the Benton Crossing project, however, do not appear to adhere to the requirement that the 3rd floor and above be recessed back from the 1st and 2nd floors. Another guideline requirement is, quote, a change in paving material shall be provided at locations where pedestrians and bicycle pathways intersect with automobile pathways and drives, end quote. This should apply to the primary driveway on River Drive and the emergency exit on Benton Street, as they both intersect with public sidewalks. 2 final North Main Corridor Design Guideline requirements, which are not met by the project renderings, are, quote, entrances shall have direct access to the sidewalk/street and have strong entry architecture to ensure pedestrians can easily identify the entrance, end quote. and, quote, mass of the building must be broken with regularly placed pilasters and other well-articulated architectural details. Balconies and other elements may be used to create variety and interest, yet remain integral to the overall design, end quote. I fully support affordable housing units and development if they comply with the corridor guidelines. Thank you for considering my comments. Sincerely, Elizabeth Perkins, Elmwood Park resident. And at this time, I believe that's all we have, but I'll check again. And Erica has no callers.
So you said there is a caller as well? Oh, there is not, okay. So I did want to ask staff, anything new and all that, like, the one thing I heard a couple times was about the intersection of driveway with sidewalk, so maybe can you comment on that?
Yeah, that would, I mean, be a detail that we would work through during the permitting. That would be an easy thing to work out with staff.
But a lot of the others I heard were regarding the zoning and some of the items we've already talked about. Was there anything else new? Okay. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of this? Anything new? Okay, thank you. I'm open up to the commissioners if anybody has clarifications, questions.
I'd just like to say that I do think that this update, especially the River Drive elevation, is substantially better than where we've started from. Really appreciate the developer keeping that in mind and activating that front quarter and bringing that to life.
Any other follow-up? You good, Bob? All right. With that, I will open the floor to a motion. Do you want to make a motion? Go ahead. We're at the motion phase, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion for 2615 River Drive, TMS 0910905-161819. I would like to make a motion to approve for new construction the project for River Drive, providing that the applicant worked with the staff on the garage screening details to include plant material, irrigation, and provisions of murals to be coordinated with One Columbia and the adjacent neighborhoods. Provide additional articulation of flat expansion of building wall on the street facing the elevations. Provide a canopy to help define the base of the building and provide a sense of pedestrian scale at street levels. Provide spandrel windows or other architectural features on the west end elevation to articulate the facade while maintaining privacy of adjacent residents. Work with the staff through encroachment process to ensure all right-of-way improvements meet city standards. Defer any additional detail to the staff.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next case.
The next case on the, next case on the regular agenda is 1126 William Street, 410 Gervais, and 411 Senate Street. This is a request for certificate of design approval for new construction in the Vista Design District. The request is for the new construction of a 7-story, 249-room hotel at the corner of Gervais and William Streets. There are overhead transmission lines and an easement along the eastern side of the property line requiring that the building be set back from the property line on William Street about 18 feet. Just as a note, we've had a lot of questions come in about the project's requirement to go to Planning Commission. I just wanted to clarify that this project will come to the Planning Commission for site plan review and also to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a setback variance. The project will be required to come to the Planning Commission for site plan review. That's based on the threshold of 100,000 square feet. Generally, projects get their site plan review before their design approval, but that's not required. So this is a little bit in a different order than what we typically see, but both of those reviews are separate processes, independent of each other, and as long as they get all of their approvals, they can do it in whatever order they would like to do it. So I just wanted to clarify that in advance because I know we've had a lot of questions come up in the last few days about that. In the interest of time, I will just skip to the staff recommendation, and then I believe the owner and for sure the architect are here to present the drawings and also answer any questions. Staff finds that the proposal substantially meets the Vista design guidelines and recommends approval of the request, conditional upon working through the following items with staff: using a combination of the dark gray concrete with the red brick, providing as close to a 4-inch depth as reasonably practical for the windows, working with staff on the encroachment to ensure all City of Columbia and Vista standards are met for the right-of-way improvements, and that all other details be deferred to staff.
Hi.
Hello.
Please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I do. My name is Craig Otto. I'm the architect for the project. I'm representing the owner, the developer is Naaman Hotels. Naaman is from Florence, but they have a substantial investment in the Midlands area. They currently own 3 properties. A brand new Hampton Inn and Suites on Sunset Boulevard on the way to Lexington. The Hilton Garden Inn that's recently was formerly the Holiday Inn and now Hilton Garden Inn across from the hospital, the Lexington Hospital. And right down the road here at UG and the Interstate 126 is the Staybridge Hotel and the Staybridge Suites that went through DDRC approval a number of years ago. So Naaman is already heavily invested in the Midlands, and they own the property that we're talking about all the way around McDonald's, the entire block. So they're going to make another substantial investment here. In fact, I think the cost is probably likely to total just about all of their other properties combined that they have here in the Midlands for this one investment, which is, as Lucinda stated, a 7-story, 145,000 square foot, 249-room hotel, along with a parking garage adjacent to it at Williams and Senate, which will be submitted separately. We are not prepared at this time to present that. And as Lucinda mentioned, we're going through Planning Commission site plan approval process concurrently with this. We're already on the agenda for July 14th for that review and discussion. Because we wanted to be as efficient as possible with our time, we're trying to get as many approvals through as quickly as we can. To give you a little background on the hotel, it's a Hilton product. It's a dual brand, so 2 hotels kind of put together, a Homewood Suites, which is an extended stay, and a True Hotel, which is a regular overnight stay hotel. They both share the same lobby and amenities. It's going to be a first-class product, and will be done very well. Naaman Hotels is only, their biggest concern is the customer experience when they stay in their hotels. So they like the rooms to be quiet and comfortable, and they take good care of their customers. I'd like to point out the fact that Lucinda mentioned that the project is sort of removed a bit from the front, the property line on Williams Street because of the overhead transmission lines. It's somewhere between 18 and 20 feet from the property line. In addition to that, there's a substantial buffer between the property line and the street of maybe 25 feet, which is sidewalk and landscaped grass and some bushes and trees and stuff right now. The developer will enhance that right-of-way in this development as part of the site plan approval and landscaping process. So the building is actually around 45 feet away from Senate Street itself. So it's unlike on Gervais Street, it's sitting right on the sidewalk at the entrance, and then articulates a little bit differently than that as it goes up the road. But it's substantially removed from the property line on Williams Street, which will give the townhomes a good buffer across the street. It's not although it's a relatively tall building in terms of being 95 feet at the entrance tower, it's not a high-rise building. It's considered a mid-rise building by definition. The top floor is less than 75 feet from the fire department access level. So it's not a high-rise building. And proportionally, it's longer horizontally than it is tall vertically, so it will have the appearance of being somewhat of a horizontal building rather than a tall vertical building. Just for folks to know that what the process is, we're hoping to have all of our approvals in place by the end of the year, and including permitting, hopefully. And then start construction soon right thereafter, or maybe by the end of the year. It'll be about a 1.5-year long process. So I guess that would put them moved in 24 sometime, I guess, if that's the math that I can do quickly in my head. I'm sure you've probably read the staff's evaluation. I feel like, having gone through this a few times on other projects, I feel like this was we got a very favorable evaluation. We tried to provide Lucinda anything that she asked us to do, and changed colors through the process, and provided some good detailing of the screen wall, the patio area on the Williams Street side of the building, which again I think will give the neighbors some good buffer and an attractive facade to look at with lots of greenery and activity at the hotel. And I guess that's the end of my presentation about the building. I would respectfully request that you provide approval as recommended by the staff. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Did you have any concerns with the recommendations, the items that were identified that they want you to work with them on?
The conditions at the end?
Yes.
I have no concerns about those. We know we can provide a window that's set in at least 3 inches. We're shooting for, and the developer is willing to pay a little extra for the fact that if we put a window in further than that, we have to provide more metal or flashing around that window. He's already directed me to do that, so we're shooting for a 4-inch recess in the windows. The colors, as you see right there on the screen, the top one is what we had suggested or originally recommended. We have the dark charcoal color at the tower and at the base and at the top, and then we were going with a contrasting lighter gray in between. Staff recommended we look at going to a darker gray in between, so we provided an alternative, which we're fine with. We can do that. We originally presented a dark charcoal colored brick. Staff pointed out the location and the adjacent project of buildings all being in the red and brown family brick. So we were immediately ready to make that change.
Question for the applicant. One of the comments staff made was with regard to the glazing on the first floor and I guess the necessary percentages. I mean, it said it was within an acceptable range, but it's about 35% less than the recommended 70%. Is that right? And I know that's consistent with the use on the first floor, but could you just talk us through staff's thinking on that consideration?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, and this has been consistent with other projects, the 70% is pretty high. We've almost never seen that in downtown. I think because they have a large amount of glazing on the public areas, the fact that there are some guest rooms on the first floor, I don't know if, I forget what the calculation was just for the public areas, but it was definitely
I think 56%.
56, okay, thanks, it's in there somewhere. But visually, it seemed like the proportion was appropriate and provided the transparency, particularly in the activated portions of the lobby and the public spaces of the hotel. And then it seemed consistent with the architectural concept to have punched windows continue down on the sections where there are guest rooms on the first floor. So again, it's a range that we've generally looked at in context with the use and also with the overall concept of the building.
And a question for the architect, would it be unusual for the glazing to be consistent throughout the first floor, even though, I guess, the last portion where the grading starts to go up? I guess to be consistent with the remainder of the first floor so that it appears uniform.
Well, we certainly considered that. On Gervais Street specifically, if you could get those elevations up, the sidewalk from one end of the building to the other rises almost 5 feet. So on that end, we could have provided a little bit more percentage of glass on the public areas on the 3 or 4 pieces of glass to the left of the corner. We had to bring the bottom of those up, so we lost a little percentage there. But then when you go further down and get to guest rooms, should you have larger areas of glass in a guest room, you get more noise in the guest room, which doesn't make for a good night's sleep. So we do try to reduce the size of the glass. And there are actually fairly substantial size windows in those guest rooms, more so than you might maybe see out on the interstate for a hotel out there. So we personally, I honestly feel like we've provided as much glass and glazing at the ground level as we possibly could, within the constraints of having guest rooms at a portion of it.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm looking at the elevation along Gervais Street. It's not clear to me. You have a space between the actual blueprint of the building and the sidewalk. Is there a landscaping or a step somewhere? I don't know what you got there.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. This rendering is not complete in that it's not trying to capture all of the landscaping and the sidewalk and the streets and cars and things. We haven't gone that far with it. But the corner at the entrance is right on the sidewalk, so you won't have any landscaping there at the main corner. As you go up Gervais and that part is recessed 2, 3, or 4 feet, I can't remember which one right now. That area will have landscaping in it, absolutely, for sure. Then you get to the next projection, and it gets close to the sidewalk, but I still think it's a foot or two back. There will be some small landscaping there, and maybe liriope. And then when you get back to the last section that's, again, back about 4 feet off the sidewalk, it will be landscaped. We're not going to fill those spaces in with solid concrete. It'll be nicely landscaped and soften that edge a little bit.
One question for staff and one question for the architect. Were there any particular reasons or guidelines behind staff's decision to revise the color scheme? And then also, one area that I think would be nice just to see some consistency maybe is when you're looking at the sign above the entryway that's facing Gervais Street, just why it's right there. There's no windows, if that's a hallway, if that's a dead-end hallway, if that's the elevator shaft. Just get an understanding of what's behind that brick there.
I'm sorry, I've missed the last part of your question as to what is where?
So to the left of the sign that faces Gervais Street.
There's a sort of a blank wall?
Yeah, sort of a blank wall there.
Those are bathrooms back to back. The corner room has a bathroom there, and then the next room over has a bathroom there, and so those are bathrooms back to back.
Okay.
But I liked it's sort of What it did was it sort of emphasized the entrance because it changes from a consistent rhythm of glazing and glass to a sort of a blank area, which highlights the sign and highlights the canopy and more or less highlights the entrance. So architecturally and proportionally, I think it still works. But that's what it is. It's bathrooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, to answer your question about the recommendation on the materials, it was really just, I mean, the guidelines recommend for 2 primary materials, and even though it was 2 different colors of concrete plus the brick, it just seemed like there was a lot going on, and trying to respond to the simplicity of buildings in the Vista, which are primarily brick, it was just a little bit of a simpler color palette, and just seemed a little bit more of a consistent massing. I mean, it was just a suggestion that we explored, and the applicant seemed to be amenable to it, so.
What is the height of the building?
The height?
What is the height, total height of the building?
I can't, the air conditioning is
He said
making.
what?
What is the height of the building? How high is it?
Total height.
It's 95 feet at the corner, which is the highest point, and that's the lowest point of the land, the ground underneath. And as you go up the street, and that portion of the building's a little shorter. It's 85 or 88 feet maybe at that left end.
I think right here, right, so 95, 85. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Staff, any other clarifications or anything you want to add? We good? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. You may email at cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov or go on the web at publicinput.com/cocddrc-May 2022. For those wanting to leave a voicemail or speak live, call 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 1993. Then press star 2 to begin leaving the voicemail. If you would like to speak live, press star 3. We will hear comments from anyone who is here in person. Hi, just please state your name, and do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
My name's Charles Liedecker, and before I start, I understood there was a 3-minute time limit, and my remarks are a little bit longer, and we have 21 people here actually from representing us, so if I could have your permission to go a little bit longer, or
Well-
have somebody else come up and finish my comments.
Well, we have a timer, and is it 2 minutes or 3 minutes? Staff, what is the timer again?
2 minutes
It's
per person.
2 minutes per person.
I may have inadvertently said 3
Oh, okay.
accidentally, so I
got
don't think
you.
that'll
All
throw
right.
us off too much.
I
Apologies
think
for
when I
that.
opened, I did clarify, is it 2 minute per public person speaking? There's a timer that will go
Okay.
off, just so you know. So you have 2 minutes.
So I can have somebody else come up and finish my comments.
You can sort that out with whoever's
Okay,
here,
okay.
but you'll have 2 minutes. So before you proceed, though, do you swear to tell the truth in this
Yes, I
proceeding?
do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm owner and occupant of 1131 William Street, which is directly across from the hotel. My home is part of the City Club development, which is 29 townhomes clustered around the historic Middleton building on the 300 block of Gervais Street. I did submit written comments yesterday, and I'm boiling them down now. Last Friday, this project arrived like a thunderbolt out of a blue sky, and since then, our entire neighborhood has united to oppose the project. We're not opposed to development, but we want development that's compatible with the neighborhood. My main objection is with the design, but we have many other objections. Of course, the big issue is with the size of the hotel. It's a full 7 stories and wraps around most of the frontage on Gervais Street and William Street. It's far out of proportion to the neighborhood, towering over the nearby buildings, topping out at 95 feet. Our townhouses across the street are only 34 feet to the top of the eave, so this is going to dominate us. The other buildings in the neighborhood that are it's just 1-, 2-, and 3-story brick buildings, like the old Confederate printing plant, Publix, Columbia Mills, the Children's Museum, and then all the historic buildings on Gervais Street. And we would hope that these buildings would provide some design references for this new building. McDonald's, which is the only extant building on the block where this hotel would be sited, they've really made an effort to adapt their building to the local context and follow the design standards. And I don't see any evidence in this hotel of an attempt to be sensitive to the surrounding neighborhood. It is a strange day when somebody would stand in front of a design review board with a straight face and urge the builder of a Hilton hotel to elevate their design at least to match the standards of a neighborhood McDonald's. But sadly, that's where we are. What you can see in the proposal is a monolith, a structure that fails to provide for an active street frontage. It stretches 175 feet along Gervais Street with a single small entrance to the hotel lobby. William Street facade is even longer, 229 feet. It offers no point of entry for the pedestrian traffic. And there's no space on the street front for street front restaurants or shops that would attract pedestrians to this part of Gervais Street. There's only minimal attempt to segment the building into a series of bays that would moderate its massive size. Most of the businesses along... All right, I'm going to...
Okay, still got 27 seconds.
20, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's only minimal attempt to segment the building into a series of bays that would moderate its massive size. Most of the businesses along Gervais have frontages of 100 feet or less. Our City Club townhomes have only 25-foot lots. So this hotel's long unbroken facades would just reinforce its outsized scale. That's the time.
We're at the time, okay. All right, thank you.
Somebody else can,
Yeah.
Carolyn, do you want to finish this?
Yeah, hi,
I'm
please state your
Carolyn
name.
Lee Decker.
What was your name?
Carolyn Lee Decker.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I do.
All right, thank you.
The scale of the signage also violates the design guidelines. The Homewood sign at the corner of Gervais and Williams would be 40 feet high, and the True Hotel sign along William Street would be about 50 feet high. These are signs that are more suitable for a location along an interstate highway. My final point addresses parking. The plan includes a massive structure with space for 430 vehicles, with a footprint of about 3/4 of an acre. The structure would be 4 or more likely 5 levels high. It too would overshadow the neighborhood. A new building that size should receive its own careful design treatment, not to mention consideration of traffic flow and safety issues. I conclude by asking the Commission to reject the application or at least defer approval until the developer presents something more sympathetic to the neighborhood and consistent with the city's design principles and guidelines. Thank you.
Yes, please state your name.
My name is Jay McKay.
And do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I do. I live on William Street, which is directly across from where the hotel is being planned. I know this isn't part of what this commission does, but William Street is not straight. It's crooked. It has encroachments out in the street. It's difficult to get around. And it's also the Girl Scout building where they have events with little children there about every weekend. So, and to put this huge hotel, we think it's incompatible with the area and incompatible with the development of what has been a historic area. We are the gateway across the Gervais Street Bridge into Columbia. City Club's on the right, We have an historic building in the middle. It's the old Standard Oil building, which has been beautifully restored and redone. Some very fancy condominiums in there. Behind us are 100 to 200-year-old warehouses that a caterer uses for events, weddings, things like that. Lots of functions there, but it's very quiet, very, the events he has usually only last a few hours. We've got the McDonald's, which I don't think is compatible, but it's been there before we have. But this building is going to take our view of the city. It'll take anyone coming across the bridge. It's just going to wipe that out. We won't be able to see the Capitol, the Adlu building, or any of that. 7 stories is big for down here. I mean, you've got the old Cotton Mill State Museum up on a hill. You've got the Adventure Museum that's kind of in a valley right across the bridge. The Publix is 2 stories high. Any event, we believe that this project should not go forward. Lastly, the congestion it's going to cause, 3 years construction's planned on the river by Dominion. 3 years they're going to basically shut down Senate Street, huge trucks running, and this construction will be on top of that.
All right, thank you. To clarify, the first beep, is that like a 30-second beep? Is that how that works on this new system?
It has varied between 30 and 15.
Okay, I was trying to understand what that tells us. Okay, all right.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Tracy Barker. I'm an owner and City Club resident.
All right, and do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Yes,
All right,
I do.
Thank you.
So, as I said, I'm a local business owner as well. I'm a strong supporter of Columbia and a strong supporter of its businesses. As Jay just said, we're on the west side of Eugene. I feel that we're, not in the central business district, but we're a gateway to the river, which is a current and future recreation area. I say that to say that we chose this area because me and my wife, we walk the university area, the Main Street area, the 5 Points. We're out all the time. And so we want everything to be pedestrian friendly. This facility is too close to Gervais. If you look at the property, it can be moved to the south to get it off of Gervais so that it softens it and so that it's not so imposing. I want to say it's too big and it's just not congruent with where we are right now. And I would appreciate your further review and scrutiny of what's been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name.
Hi, I'm Melissa Harrell.
And do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I do. And let me be very clear. We are not opposed to the development. This empty lot is not preferable. We would, excuse me, love to have something that is more suitable there. A hotel, in my opinion, would be a lovely addition, especially since I can shove my kids there on the holidays. But for the most part, I have 4 questions or 4 concerns that I would very much appreciate you addressing. The first one is, Jay, I already mentioned it, has the city considered the current project with the coal tar removal out of the river? Right now, they started this Monday. Trucks are already piling in there with gravel and rocks. There are going to be 50 trucks between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. every day for 6 to 8 months out of the year for the next 2 to 5 years, depending upon the river and the weather. So I don't know how that's going to work. Secondly, has the city reached out to the Girl Scouts? As you've already heard, this is a wonderful addition to the Columbia area, and we have this lovely sound every Saturday and Sunday morning of little giggles and teenage giggles, and that's a lot of young folks to be right there at a parking garage and with that kind of traffic. The third, has the city conducted a traffic study? And if not, I would very much advise that, given the size of Williams Street, how close on Gervais it is to the light. It's going to be an incredible congestion per this plan. And lastly, I'm a little bit mystified as to why we are worrying about the color of bricks at this point. There has been no approvals by the state, by the city as far as construction. So I would respectfully request that you defer, and let's give the Planning Commission a little time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public? Please state your name.
Yep. I'm Wade Kaufman.
And do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
I'm sorry?
You swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Please start.
Okay, so I am a real estate developer here in Columbia, have been for the last 20 years. I also live at the City Club, and I was a partner in developing the City Club. So going back, I shared this with you since 1992. My first house I did was in Elwood Park. My next building was on Elwood Avenue. Then I did a retail store in the Vista on Wayne Street when Wayne Street was closed and the Lady Street Bridge was not even open. And CK Supply was there at the end of the road. It's now Chipotle. Redeveloped Motor Supply property, brought in Salsaritas Social. Did Park Street Lofts down on Park Street, the Train Trestle. Did Noma Flats on North Main when it was old Barcode Apartments before Noma was Noma. And then also City Club. And I share this with you in all those processes over the last 20 years. I've gone through planning and zoning first, because you cannot approve a design until you know what the site's going to be like. You know, if you think about that, everything could change. There's a lot of design elements in this hotel that does not, it is not compatible with the neighborhood. Not just the siding and the windows and the doors, but the positioning. I mean, for a guest experience, there's like 14 rooms that face the city. I think when I come into my city that we all have a passion for, we want to have a great experience to face that. So other site challenges that I see, that is which is purpose of the process, and what I've gone through as a developer, which seems the right way to do things. And that's why you guys I challenge you to make a right decision on something that can't be approved when the site's not approved. It can completely change. The traffic study has not been done. So here's my challenge to you is think about those things when the site's not been done. You can't approve a design until it's done because it could easily change. The garage and other places proposed, it may not ever happen. But most importantly, we have not even had a chance to speak with Mr. Patel, which is unusual to meet with you meet with your neighbors. And so I ask you to table this decision today so we can meet with the owner and maybe come up with a solution. He's done a lot of great things in our metro area.
No, thank you.
All right.
I appreciate that. All right, sir? And not to be rude, I just want to make sure anybody who wants to speak gets the opportunity. So I will certainly cut you off when the time is out there, just so you know. We do have that to abide by. But anyway, hi. Please state your name.
My name is John Taylor. I live at 11.
Go ahead. Where are you?
1127 William Street, directly across from where this project is proposed.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm a retired architect. I'm one of the designers for City Club. I've been practicing architecture for 50 years, thereabouts, in Columbia, and I served on the Planning Commission for 6 years. I don't ever recall a project going to DDRs first and then coming to the Planning Commission. There are too many things that have to be resolved with the site plan. We don't have a problem with the site being developed. It needs to be developed properly. So there's a lot can happen in reviewing the site plan. So, and we are aware, and I just found out that the project has not even been filed with the Planning Commission as of Monday. So I think that needs to be done first. So I would strongly suggest that you table this thing today, defer any decisions till after it's been to the Planning Commission, and then we'll review the DDRC part. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in person?
Good afternoon.
Hi,
My
please
name,
state your name. Yes.
Pardon?
Yeah, state your name. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Mcmillan, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you.
I live in City Club. I live on Senate Street with my husband, Doug Mcmillan. We were the first people to move into, not to purchase, but to move into City Club. We've seen a lot of growth, but over the years, we have compatibility with buildings in that area, what I call the tail end of the Vista. Every project that's been dealt with, people came before you or your predecessors and abided by what you needed to have done. No one built anything over 7 feet tall. That will tower that area. It will tower over the Children's Museum, the Publix condominium and grocery store, the little 2-story McDonald's. When our college-age granddaughter came to visit, she said, "Oh, Nana, I want to go to McDonald's." "Why, darling? You go all the time." "But I've never eaten a McDonald's in a 2-story building." Everything that has been done to meet your requirements and your recommendations. This will be excruciating from the standpoint of crossing that river. The number of people who tell us how pleasant that is. And that sounds not pleasant, but I heard it.
Thank you. I think you still got maybe 30 seconds. So, yeah.
Okay. So we're just asking, we're not opposed to development, but 7 stories in an area that doesn't have those kind of heights, it will take away from the beauty of that part of the city. So thank you for, if you could table or postpone this till we could have a chance to talk with the developer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak in person? If there's nobody else in person, I'm going to move on to say any comments that have been received in writing.
Sure. I'll start with the folks who sent comments that were delivered to y'all in time before the meeting for you to read. And the list includes Paul Gaffney, Gordon Langston, John Taylor, Edward Fettner, Charles Liedecker, Paul Harrell, Paul Gaffney once more, and Jay McKay. And I have some written correspondence that came in the last day. This is from Jim and Heidi Colwell, who live on Lady Street. And it starts, this letter is written regarding the following properties: 1126 Williams, 410 Gervais, 411 Senate. We are unable to attend today's meeting. While we completely agree with investment in building in Columbia and in the Vista, we also recognize the short and long-term goal of building in the Vista, which keeps and enhances the district's distinctive and well-planned quality/ambiance. This property is on one of the main gateways to the city as many drive into Columbia and the Vista via Gervais. It also borders on the West Gervais Historic District, one of the unique districts in Columbia, which is, of course, full of history. We are writing to ask for a temporary deferral on this project as the neighboring residents, organizations, and businesses have had little to no time to collaborate with the city and the developers on the project. After a quick read, some items that look to be better understood and addressed include: number 1, Williams Street. This has partial funding, and how does this newly completed street fit in? What are the setbacks, and why are the variances needed for the proposed setbacks? 2, parking. No detail on the parking structure is given, and how does that structure fit in with the rhythm of the surrounding buildings? 3, building size and finished look. The plan describes a large mass building with some limited brick, depending on which side. This is not consistent with the buildings and rhythm of the area. The Vista is an old warehouse district, and Adventure, Publix, McDonald's, City Club, and Cell Repair Shop across UG are all brick. This building, again, right at the gateway to the Vista and Columbia, is a mix of materials. In addition, its size and mass is not at all consistent with the surrounding areas. Examples below, and he had included some pictures. Thank you, and please defer this project to give the neighborhood and stakeholders time to discuss and address these and other issues. The next email is from Bart Walrath, who's the president of the Vista Neighborhood Association. He writes, I am writing to request temporary deferral of the May 19th DDRC regular agenda item 2, 1126 Williams, 410 Gervais, and 411 Senate due to insufficient time for adequate review. The project seemed to be abnormally rushed through with no details available to the public until Friday, May 13th, and no neighborhood contact by the developer until Monday, May 16th, prior to the May 19th DDRC meeting to request a certificate of design approval. Respectfully, Bart Walrath. The next is from Gerald Thorpe, who lives on Pulaski Street. He's asking for a temporary deferral of the May 19th DDRC regular agenda item to 1126 Williams, Gervais, and Senate due to insufficient time for adequate review. The last is an email from Christine Duncan, a resident at Printer Square, who writes, I am a resident of the Vista, and I would like to request a temporary deferral of the May 19th DDRC regular agenda item 2. And those are all the written comments we have that came in prior to the meeting.
Any emails received since we've been on?
Yes, we have received one. We do not have any callers on the line, though, currently. So, pull that up. So I have an email from Daryl Williams, and he writes, this seems to be a difficult issue because zoning approval and design approval are apparently out of order, and because the area classified as mixed use is currently dominated by a $25 million investment in fully owner-occupied, tax-paying, single-family homes. Construction of a 7-story extended stay hotel on adjacent property is completely out of sync with the established nature of the community, will overshadow the single-family townhomes, and will eliminate the possibility of more badly needed single-family homes in that area. I hope the city will come to grips with this issue and approve a plan in the best interests of the city of Columbia, which needs high-quality single-family housing far more than another budget-priced hotel. At the very least, any hotel needs to front UG Street rather than Williams Street, leave room for other development on the narrow Williams Street, and be limited to 4-story height with inconspicuous signage. Darrell K. Williams, 1128 Gist Street, Columbia, and I'm not going to read his phone number.
Is that all the written and voice correspondence?
I'll refresh once more. But
all right. Guess I will ask the applicant if they want to respond to any of these comments. Do you want to respond to any of these comments, or so then, yeah, please come back up.
I won't so much address the residents' comments, as I'm sure they're very concerned about their homes and such, but I will point out some comments on the review from the staff. And by the way, signs, as I understand it, signs have to be permitted separately. So the signs that we show are conceptual, and they're not set in stone yet. The signs have to be permitted. But to point out some of the comments by staff, the building is sited properly on the site as an L-shaped footprint at the corner of Gervais and Williams. We were required to put the building on the corner of Gervais and Williams. We were required to have that building within 0 to 10 feet of the property line, so we cannot set it back by ordinance. It has to be on the sidewalk. So it is on the sidewalk on Gervais, but because of the power lines on Williams, it's set back substantially from that side. At least 80% of the lot frontage should be covered by the building. So we're within those guidelines of covering the property lines with the buildings. We're following the guidelines. The building, these are comments from staff and/or the written ordinance. The building addresses the corner effectively with the solid brick massing with a prominent roof canopy, and the entrance includes a pedestrian-scaled canopy. That was the staff's opinion. The 7-story structure is consistent with the recommendations of the master plan, the guidelines, and will add density and an active use to the corner. Staff comments. With 100-foot rights of way, this is referring to the height of the building, 85 to 95 feet. With 100-foot rights of way, this is very close to the recommended 1-to-1 ratio and will provide a better sense of urban scale for this gateway corner in the district. So the ratio and size and scale of the building meets the guidelines and is supported by staff. And we have broken up the size and mass of the building. Again, staff's comments, the alternating pattern of recessed exposed concrete and brick bays along both street frontages works well to break up the mass of the building into smaller scaled elements. So the building doesn't look like one big, giant building. The use of materials works well with the massing of the building and with the design. The building entrance to the lobby has been provided at the street corner, which is important to these guidelines and also required by zoning, which calls for specific street frontages in Vista to be ground floor activity zones. This corner is included in that requirement, and a hotel lobby does qualify as an active ground floor use. And to reiterate staff's recommendation, they find that the proposal substantially meets the Vista design guidelines, and they recommend approval of the request. So we choose not to defer because we have so many approvals to get through this entire process, and it takes quite a long time. So we would like to go ahead and request your approval tonight. And as far as the parking garage, I would like to make sure everybody understands that we do have to go through this whole process again with the parking garage. The entrance, as it's designed right now, is on Senate Street, not on Williams Street, facing the townhomes. So the traffic will come in mostly from UG and enter the parking garage on Senate that way. And there's an entrance inside the site behind the hotel. So, thank you.
Staff, do you have any comments just based on anything? Okay. I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments from commissioners. I'm going to share a thought I have. I am having a hard time understanding this process, too, of not having the site approval first with the design. I'm finding that a little challenging. And I'm also not seeing the entire magnitude of the project to even include the parking is just hard to grasp the entire concept. That's my personal struggle, but I'd open up to any other comments from commissioners.
Agree with that comment. I have a feeling that planning and zoning is going to have, some feedback on the parking garage and entrances into the site. And I think without, having an idea of what the entire massing of the project is going to be, it's hard to comment on one particular section of it.
Understanding that this part could meet the guidelines, trying to understand the totality. I guess, I don't know, staff, any comments on that?
I mean, I guess just to kind of reiterate at the beginning of the meeting, there are several reviews required. Generally, we do see site plans come before design approvals. However, they are independent processes. If anything were to come about in the site plan review that required changes to the plan that would affect the design review, that would come back to the commission if it were something significant. So, that process is forthcoming. It's independent of this process, and it looks at parking and zoning and, fire department access. A traffic impact study will probably be part of that process. So a lot of these things will have to be addressed. And again, if they make any changes that affect the design approval, then the design approval will have to come back. So, I mean, it's a risk the developer and applicant take by doing this first, but there is no ordinance that requires they do one before the other.
Understood.
And I don't know if this has ever come up, but so this is more of a question for staff, if this is even a possibility, but if we were to make a deferral today, could we make our deferral a condition of it that they receive approval from planning or zoning before coming back to us?
I mean, I guess if the deferral were for the specific purpose of getting the site plan done before the design approval, then we know that's coming in July, because they have outlined that schedule based on the application deadline, and I suppose possibly some other things that they're trying to work out. So, I mean, it would just be a deferral until the site plan approval is completed, and then it would come back. I mean.
Any other commissioners, any comments or questions?
I have a question related to the staff's review of the project. It was a little confusing, well, a couple of parts, and not because of staff's comments, just how everything kind of melds together. The only reference I saw to height was with regard to the massing, and so are there no restrictions other than that it maintain a 1-to-1 ratio?
Well, the zoning is what determines the allowances for height. This zoning district actually does not have a maximum height allowance, except for in cases if it's within 300 feet of the historic district overlay or a residential base zoning district, the height would be capped at 75 feet. So the site and where the building is placed does not fall within those zones. So the the MC zoning is an unlimited height for this property.
All right, thank you. Another area I had a question about was with regard to the surface parking. I'm sure that goes along, well, can't be sure of anything, but it seems like that would go along with the parking structure. But I know there were some comments about requirements, landscaping requirements with regard to surface parking, and they may be in the packet, but I don't remember seeing any. Were there any designs with regard to landscaping around that surface parking?
The landscaping around the surface parking would be covered by our landscape ordinance, which is part of the site plan review. So, I mean, we have a landscape ordinance that would dictate screening and that sort of thing, and any kind of trees that would be required. So that would come through site plan review.
Okay, what you're saying is that's not really within our purview.
No, I mean, if there were any landscape, it's a little bit outside of the purview. If there was any landscaping that was somehow contrary to the design guidelines, then you could certainly weigh in on it. But in terms of requiring certain landscaping in certain areas,
so
the landscape ordinance covers that, I guess.
Okay, and so the area of the surface parking is not under consideration as part of this project today?
Well, no, it's part of the design approval. If there are any aspects of the surface parking that are contrary to the design guidelines, then that could certainly be commented on. But the actual requirements of providing screening and trees and so forth is part of the landscape ordinance. Does that make sense?
It does, yep, thank you.
And Andrew, I think I kind of go along with what you're saying there. Are you saying with the surface parking that's there in the rear entrance into the hotel, you'd like to see some kind of graphic of that or see what they're planning back there?
Right, it's within, I think, our purview because it's considered, I guess, sections 1.3.1 through 1.3.8 that discuss the landscaping guidelines for surface parking. And so I guess it's either considered today or it's considered it in conjunction with the structure parking? Or is there not going to be a chance for us to review these, whether the landscaping complies with these guidelines?
Okay, so generally speaking, our landscape ordinance, anything that would be required would cover what's required by the design guidelines. And so we kind of look at those things in conjunction with each other. The surface parking is primarily located behind the building, so that which is a recommendation of the design guidelines. In terms of specific plant materials and that sort of thing, I guess if the landscape ordinance, again, requirements did not end up covering what the design guidelines recommended, then we would certainly look at that. That would generally be something that staff would review, detail deferred to staff. I guess, are there specific things about the parking lot that you're concerned about?
No, just that it has certain setback requirements, certain width requirements that are here, and I guess we're not able to determine whether their design complies with those guidelines.
Yeah, there's no elevation or,
The surface lot is on the diagram.
from the interior of the
correct?
lot.
Yeah, the surface lot is, but
Okay.
not the garage. The garage is not. That was,
All right, right.
okay.
Yeah, the parking garage will come to DDRC for design approval. Yeah.
It's a piece of it. Hold on. I think the applicant can still speak. Follow-up
Just a
response?
quick comment,
Sure.
that there, we did provide a site plan
Yes.
in there, and the surface parking is shown behind there, in case you didn't notice that.
Right,
And then on the floor plan shows a portion of that, and the conceptual landscaping is shown on that plan as well. There's no trees and bushes noted as to what they are, but we do intend to landscape it as you see it on that, on those floor plans and
Yeah,
such.
great, thank you.
And I got one question for you. Was with the site not having any height requirements on it, was there any consideration given to going higher than 7 stories? And for example, like the room that we were talking about on the corner, coming from the entrance from Gervais Street, maybe there'd be an opportunity to create retail all on that Gervais frontage, and you'd be able to get the room count that you're looking for by going 8, 9, 10 stories.
We discussed going higher in the beginning, and there's in the building code, there's somewhat of a substantial difference between a mid-rise and a high-rise building in terms of its requirements and cost for the building. So we were able to get the room count in within 7 stories, and the lowest floor is below 75 feet, and that kept us as a mid-rise and not a high-rise. So if we go 1 story higher, we will be a high-rise building, and it's something we would prefer to avoid.
Understood.
Cost goes up substantially.
Okay.
And while you're up here, just referring to, and I know we don't have the benefit of hearing, at least in the room today, the comments that were sent in by email that we had a chance to review before today. But there was a lot of talk about and this is kind of a combo question for staff and for the applicant. There was a lot of discussion, and I think the first public commenter referenced the lack of notice. I do remember a comment saying there was a sign put up about 4 weeks ago, but that it was torn down. I don't know what effect that has on the public notice, but in addition to those comments, and this is kind of where I would direct my question to you is, I think it was conveyed through staff that the neighbors had some concerns, and the applicant reached out wanting to meet, and there just hasn't been a time, since Monday, to make that meeting happen, but that the applicant expressed a desire to meet with the neighbors. Would you like us to defer our decision here today so you have a chance to do that?
The applicant, as far as my firsthand conversation with Mr. Patel, was that his son, Milan, reached out and had a conversation with a person who, as I was told, was the president of the association. That's what I understand. And that there was no a desire on that person's part to set up a meeting. That's the information I have, that they did not need to meet because that particular person had no objections to the development. And so they did. So the owner did, in fact, reach out and have at least one conversation with someone with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I want to just confer with staff. I mean, we've done public comment. Public comment is closed right now. So sorry, there is no rebuttal on public comment post all the public comments. I'm just letting the people know that because I saw some people getting up and coming forward. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So just that the conversation had occurred between the owner's son and the association member. Was that what I?
That's
Okay,
what
sorry,
I understand
yes.
happened,
All right.
yes. And there didn't seem to be an urgency, and we decided that we wanted to continue the process. That was the way it was left.
Thank you.
One more thing, and I think it's probably fairly evident where the commission's sort of leaning today. I think one thing that I'd like to see If you do in fact come back in front of this board, is on the rear of the building elevation. I would like to see the entrance into the hotel from back there. Currently, it just shows a brick wall all the way throughout the center, and then one looks like single door entrance off to the right.
Is this along Williams Street, did you say, or?
No, this is from the rear entrance of the building, from the parking lot.
There's an entrance right where the L, in the corner of the L, and there's a canopy. It's not shown entirely on that drawing, but there's an entrance canopy so you can drive your car underneath it.
Yeah, I saw that on the site plan, but it's not shown in the elevation. There's no details given on the elevation.
No, there's not any details given on the canopy.
Yeah, this, kind of even a 3D perspective or something would kind of help me. I've been trying to get to the orientation. From corner
That's
to
an
corner.
incomplete rendering. I apologize for that. Though that is not done, and it really should not have been included in this presentation. I apologize. There's a lot of glass that you don't see there. There's the entrance canopy. There's a lot of landscaping. There's parking and handicap and lots of activity back there that you can see better on the floor plan and on the site plan, but not back there.
Yeah, understood.
Apologize for that. That was a mistake.
All right.
When staff and I talked and met, we were almost entirely consumed with what the Gervais and Williams Streets facades would look like. That was what we focused our attention on.
Okay.
Just to clarify too, the purview of the DDRC is limited to what's visible from the public
road.
right-of-way.
Right.
So we don't generally weigh in on first floor, rear building facades and parking that's behind the building, because that's out of the public view of the public right-of-way.
Right. So, thanks for reminding us that, yes.
Well, what's the plan on the bottom floor facing William Street? I see the canopy out there, and it appears to look, it'd be a restaurant. Would that be a hotel-owned restaurant? Would that be a space available for lease? Because I bring that up because if that is a public space, then it's very likely that, customers could be parking in the rear, and then see the rear entrance.
It's not a third-party restaurant. It's not a restaurant operated by anyone other than the hotel operation. And it's not even really a restaurant. It's serving food, breakfast in particular. As you know, most hotels provide free breakfast in the morning. So the only cooking or food preparation, to my understanding, is going on is breakfast, and there'll be perhaps some snacks and other things throughout the day, and there's grab-and-go stuff. As far as the food, the activity that's out there is as that screenshot shows right there. There's a couple of fire pits and seating area that's directly outside the lobby. So where there's seating inside the lobby, through that glass you'll see seating outside the lobby. As you work your way down to the right, that's an outdoor kitchen, which is actually for the guests. Because the Homewood Suites is an extended stay hotel, the Hilton and the developer want to provide certain amenities to the folks who were staying there that night or staying for a week. So there's a grill out there or two for guests to make their own food. And there's seating out there. There's going to be some activity. For instance, we have a spot for cornhole to be located. The fitness area has an outdoor patio that's sort of an extension of the fitness area that you can go outside in the daylight and in the sunshine and in the fresh air and stretch and do Pilates and such like that. So there is quite a lot of activity along that street side at Williams, but it is oriented for the guests of the hotel. Okay. And it's not for outside use, generally speaking.
Okay. Well, I guess just one other comment I'd like to make, and don't misconstrue some of mine as negative towards the project, because overall I think it's a great project. Bringing density into downtown Columbia is, I think, something a lot of people are favorable of, and we just want to see it done right, because it is, an entrance into downtown Columbia from the Gervais Street Bridge, like a lot of people have pointed out today.
Thank you.
Take it. Thank you.
I'm sorry, well, public comment is already over. We're moved into the final stage now. We're moving towards a motion. We went backwards to look at pictures. I don't want to get anything confused. All right, I'm going to move now. I'm going to open for a motion.
So just to clarify, if we were to make a motion to defer with the site plan being a contingency of them coming back for a request for approval, we would just have to state the site plan, not planning commission or zoning?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
I think he's trying to understand how to correctly.
Yeah, correct.
word a
I'm trying to
motion
correctly,
for
trying to
deferral.
understand how to correctly phrase this motion. Let's say, if we were to make a recommendation of deferral today, and what we would like to see is before the applicant comes back for the site plan to be approved, can we make that a contingency to our deferral?
I mean, I think because those two approvals are separate, and this has to be approved based on the design guidelines, and that has to be approved based on planning commission purview, if you're going to defer a decision, it would be helpful to know if there are things you would like for the architect and the developer to work on to change between now and then, because, as I said, if the planning commission decision changes the site plan that affects the design, it will have to come back anyway. So if there aren't changes that you want to see, then just waiting for that approval, I mean, I think we need to be
I understand what you're
specific
saying.
about
We have
why
to
we're
be
deferring the
specific
decision.
why we're deferring.
Okay.
Question to staff. You mentioned that the rear of the building wasn't visible from the right of way.
Well, the first floor is what I said, the first floor, and the parking lot.
Is there a reason for that? Is it because of the grading? Or, why wouldn't you be able to see the rear or the first floor of the rear of the building from Signage Street?
Well, I mean, there will be a parking garage there by the time this is built, because the hotel is dependent upon that in order to function.
I guess, again, we're similar to Taylor's comments about deferring until it's received planning commission approval. That's a totally separate process. They could, I'm not sure what the options would be, but consider alternative forms of parking that don't include a structure, which would keep that visible from the right-of-way. So I guess if I had to give something I would like to see different for us to consider on a deferred project or a deferred consideration, it would be more detail in the elevation to the rear of the building that shows compliance with the guidelines we have before us. Particularly with regard to, I guess, the comments Taylor pointed out about glazing, was that, or was that something the architect pointed out, but also the landscaping?
The landscaping in the parking lot to the rear of the building?
Right.
Okay.
Or, well, with regard to the surface parking at the rear of the building.
Okay. I think it'd be helpful to have some specific guidance on,
Yeah.
do you think there needs to be more glazing on the back of the building? I mean, the guidelines are primarily focused on street frontage, the street frontage elevations.
So one thing we heard tonight, just so I'm making sure I understand the facts, we don't have the most updated recent rendering that we have viewed here tonight or in the package. Is that true? Was that true or not true?
The 3D perspective you see is not up to date, but the exterior elevations, the 2D views of the project are accurate and up to date. You not have the back? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So the view on the bottom right there, yeah, that's the back side. So there you can see the glazing at the entrance. The area to the left that doesn't have any windows is service, laundry, the commercial laundry that's associated with a hotel, mechanical rooms, mechanical space. So that is a complete elevation that you see there. Has brick on most of the base of the building, if not all of it.
Okay, so I mean, we do have a situation where, so what's been presented does meet the design guidelines. But we do have a situation where there's a lot of potential unknowns, but don't really affect what we're looking at right now. But we don't see is the garage element, right? And just help me and the commissioners, what would be our purview over the garage, just understanding the whole relationship to the project?
In terms of the design of the
Yeah,
garage?
just, yeah, are we, yes, I guess I'm just.
The garage, the garage, if and when it is built, which our understanding is that it will be, in order for this project to have parking, it
Yeah.
will be required. The garage will come before this commission for design approval. Again, y'all are welcome to make the decision you want to make. It doesn't have to be based on staff comments. If there are concerns about the rear elevation or other things that are not in the staff write-up, it would be helpful for us to understand the specific things that you would like to see different between now and then.
Understood.
The small amount of parking that is behind the L-shaped building is largely not going to be visible from the right-of-way, whether or not the parking garage is built. And if landscape requirements will be required by the landscape ordinance, that will be there. If there are specific landscape things that you would like to see in that parking lot, it would be helpful to know what those are, so that we have guidance before we come back to you and before the applicant comes back to you at a later date.
I'm going to be honest, this is a struggle because there's opportunities to do something a little bit better here, but I'm having a hard time figuring out how to articulate what it is. And I'm open to anybody helping me on this, but this is kind of a challenge for the commissioners at the moment.
And so were you bringing up the garage to make that maybe condition of the deferral, that in the next application, we'd like to see that in conjunction? Can that be a part of the decision that we make, or the motion that is made, to see them jointly presented?
It feels like you're kind of looking at a project, the biggest part of it, but you're not getting like the total picture of it. I don't know. That seems to be kind of a challenge I'm having, and I don't know. If that's
my understanding is this application is for the review of this building as it is currently designed on this part of the site. I
understand.
I'm not sure that we can defer.
It's not
you
like
can
looking
defer
at the
it.
whole project.
You can defer it, but I'm not sure. We have lots of projects that come in that are phased or have different components. I think if the decision is deferred, and again, that is your purview to do that, the reason for the deferral and things that you would like to see when it comes back would be very helpful to be articulated, not only for staff, but for the applicant to understand what they need to do differently to help this project meet these design guidelines more thoroughly if there are concerns.
Right. And thank you. I know you keep restating that for us, and we appreciate that because we're just trying to figure out, I think, how we could articulate it. So parts of the guidelines, staff that talk about being a gateway and such, I didn't see really any comments on that, any concerns. There really were no concerns with that either. All right. So we have to look at the project that we're looking at,
Yeah.
under our purview of the design guidelines for where we're at this moment.
Looking at the guidelines, and to staff's comments about the garage being a necessary part of the project, and with the desire to ensure that there's a cohesiveness between the two, and I know that the garage can be considered separately or as a separate phase. You know, as it stands, it looks as though you're going to have a hotel with a bunch of surface parking, which is discouraged from the guidelines we have in front of us, or discouraged by the guidelines we have in front of us. So I think if I were to defer, it would be to see a mock-up of the parking structure, but also, and it seems like I'm nitpicking here, or it feels like that, but I do think that keeping in line with the Vista Design District's goals in seeing more pedestrian traffic in this area, it is important to have beautiful streetscaping, which includes landscaping. And, I guess considering the Girl Scout facility right across William Street, where I believe the surface parking would be, I know a lot of the vegetation or knee walls, I think they're referred to as, at surface parking provides a safety component as well. So I would like to make a motion to defer the project until we are able to see a mock-up of the parking structure to ensure its design cohesiveness with the building we see before us, or the design of the building we see before us, which I do think is beautiful along Gervais. And also a 3D rendering of the surface parking and the landscaping that would entail.
Okay, do I have a second?
Mr. Broom?
Yes.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Motion passes.
One more.
We have one more case
Right.
on the agenda.
Is that? Yeah, really. I'm going to go get a drink after that.
All right, a new staff member.
Was that clear enough for staff? I mean, the request? Right, but I do think it's important to see both of them together, even if it's a different phase.
I think
All right, are we ready to proceed to the next case?
Right, our next case is 1004, 1006. If I got the right, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, wait a minute. I don't think that's the right case.
Here we go. There we go. 1235 Maiden Lane, you want me to do that?
All right, so this is 1235 Maiden Lane. This is a proposed new construction of a single-family house on a vacant lot on the west side of Maiden Lane. This lot was once part of a larger lot that's now been subdivided to allow for 3 single-family homes, 2 of which were reviewed and approved by the DDRC and have since completed construction. This last lot is the center lot between the 2 recently built infill houses, which we have images of here. These are on either side of this proposed new construction. This proposed 1.5-story brick house is roughly 3,900 square feet in total. The proposal also includes a carport located directly behind the house. Looking at Section 3, new construction guidelines for Melrose Heights Oak Lawn. Staff concerns with the design primarily include number 2, size and scale, and number 3, massing. These concerns are also focused primarily on the left elevation. Considering size, scale, and massing, the house expands back approximately 99 feet, which is much longer than most in the neighborhood. The varied massing on the right side elevation with the center that is inset should minimize the overall appearance of scale from the street. However, on the left, the two main inconsistencies in massing are the central mass between the two gables and the modern chimney or fireplace projection. As designed, the central part of the elevation extends further out towards the driveway than the gables to either side. With a solid wall of brick to the right of the central recessed door, the central mass reads more monolithic than would typically be seen, and it adds to the sense of enlarged scale on this particular house. As this building is already considerably longer than is typically found in the neighborhood, staff recommends that this portion of the building be recessed to break up the elevation into clearly defined front, middle, and center, like the right elevation is. Likewise, the modern chimney on this elevation is also not a typical form found within this district or any historic house. The fireplace projection is designed like the front porch entry and reads in the drawing as a second entry, which would be atypical in this location and with the exact design of the front entry. The use of traditional chimneys is very common as a decorative feature on historic houses in this neighborhood, so staff recommends styling this projection as a traditional chimney to be consistent with historic features in the district and in keeping with the guidelines. Staff recommendations. Staff finds that the proposed new construction at 1235 Maiden Lane generally complies with Section 3 of the Melrose Heights Oak Lawn Guidelines and recommends granting a certificate of design approval with the following conditions. That windows on the house be aluminum clad with exterior muntins. The front door design be submitted to staff for final approval. And the left elevation be designed with a recessed central section to better break up the massing along the side, and that the modern chimney be designed to reflect a more historic, traditional chimney form with all other details deferred to staff.
Okay. Hi, yeah. Please state your name.
My name is Days Manning, and I reside at 1239 Maiden Lane, which is the house to the right of the proposed house that we're looking at.
Okay. And do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
All right.
I designed my house a few years ago, and Wayne Smith is here as well, and he's on the left side of the proposed lot. And Robin Brackett, the architect, did all three of these plans. And obviously, dealing with a 50-foot lot, there are design constraints given the setback situations and whatnot. We're looking at a house that's basically 30 to 32 feet wide and longer than normal because of the
Sir, I'm sorry. Is this the applicant?
I'm actually the contractor and the person who lives next door to it, so I'm here to speak.
Is he speaking on behalf of the applicant?
I am.
Okay, sorry, yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I was getting a little
If
confused.
that's okay.
Okay, no, yes, I just wanted to make sure we knew that. All right.
So the design constraints are a challenge. Another challenge that the applicant had is that this is going to be a multi-generational house. There'll be 3 generations of people living in here, a 92-year-old mother, a grandmother, and then a special needs child. And therein lies the need for the elevator and the side entrance on the left-hand side elevation. I think Ms. Brackett has provided staff with some additional elevations regarding mass and scale as of last Tuesday, and I don't see those as a part of this presentation, but in order to address those concerns that staff had on the left side elevation, the back rear on the left-hand side, the elevation was changed from a gable to a hip, which brought the mass down significantly. There is a lot of movement on the left-hand side of the house. It's not just flat. The fireplace that was mentioned in the concern of staff is basically going to be deleted. So the feature that was designed to kind of match the front side entrance will be deleted. And the concern about the porch moving back in is really not, from a building standpoint, able to accomplish what needs to be done because of the elevator and the stairs in the central location of the house. Given the length of the house and the driveway, you know, I look down mine all the time, and if you look down Mr. Smith's, you really are not going to be able to see the features down that far back, even though they do have movement that's not flat. So I think the concern is not a terrible one. I mean, in the fact that it's not going to be seen very well from the street. My hope is that y'all will consider the changes favorably and vote to approve this plan. I brought some plans.
So, let me ask a question. Are there different plans than what we've been seeing? I'm a little confused.
Right, I think there was a later submittal that staff didn't receive that we're discussing right now.
Oh, okay. So what we've seen is not the latest. And what we're looking at even on the screen is not the latest. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
Should I provide y'all with these copies of what we have?
Yeah, that there is something more updated. So, yeah, I would agree that that would
Apologize.
be more productive.
Right there, though.
Yeah, I was getting confused myself. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, we can share one. Let's see comparison.
You are in the meeting now. There are.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, because we were a little confused in what we were looking. Can you just give us
I
the highlight
apologize.
version again of how this is different than what we've seen?
I didn't realize
okay?
that the staff submittals were not complete at this point.
Just a quick question for the applicant. So it sounds like, and I might be hearing you wrong, that the only issue you have with staff's recommendations are the recessed door in the left elevation?
The doors and window situation are, you know, fine with us, but if you look at the top where the porch, the ingress and egress comes in between those two dormers, I think the staff was asking for that to be pushed into the house to create a hyphen. And in order to do that, if you look at the floor plan, it is a narrow breezeway there with a porch on the other side. The elevators and the stairs are all located in that area, and it would make it problematic for the design on what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
So based on your desktop review over there, what are you seeing, staff?
Yeah, I mean, I would say with the recess portion, I understand, yeah, they would have to lose a few feet of either their garden or their screen porch. That was always the understanding. I know that they would have to be able to move that back. It just reads as very monolithic. And as far as would you be able to see it, I don't think I included the pictures. Yeah, here. It's hard to say. I mean, there's going to be a driveway on that side, and The two driveways are going to be right next to each other. You are going to be able to see pretty much all the way down that side of the building. You definitely are. I know from experience, things tend to be a lot more visible than we would like them to be, but.
I did bring a couple of photographs of houses, new construction of houses in Melrose, looking down the driveway that, you know, it's a straight shot down and they're not near as deep, and you have a very hard time seeing the back of the house. But those houses too are very flat front to back, whereas this does have movements in and out, which creates some definition to the elevation.
Pins and needles. I think staff's reviewing some of this latest drawing and trying to assess how it met maybe the staff recommendations. I think that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Yeah, no, not yet.
Okay.
All right. I think we're waiting, you know, for an autopsy report to know what staff over here thinks with the latest drawing and how that affected the recommendations that were presented.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still do have the same concern about that center portion. It is going to be highly visible. And I think one of the things, and I've talked about this with the architect, one of the things that works well on the white brick house on the right there, even though that center portion projects out, is that there's a void behind it. So there's still that sense that the mass is being broken up into two sections.
There's a what behind it, what'd you say?
A void.
Oh,
It's
void.
an open
Yeah, sorry.
porch
Okay.
area.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a solid wall. So imagine that as more of a solid wall, and that's what this would more or less look like as far as projecting forward of that gable. So it reads more monolithic and a little bit bigger, and you get a more sense of a scale in that sense.
Yeah. What I'm looking at with this video, whatever, and you talked about this solid wall, brick and stucco, and the plan shows a gate connecting to the new residence. Is that correct?
Shows a what
A
connected?
new gate. It shows a gate on the floor plan.
A gate,
Yeah.
the one in here? Like in this one?
You mean like a wall across their driveway?
I think it's talking about
Is
when
that
you come down the
somebody else's gate?
driveway, is this like right in here?
That's somebody
We're looking
else's
at
gate?
the center property, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, right. So that's this house, we're talking about this one right here. That's what she's
I know.
talking about. Okay, I know. All right,
So I got confused.
yeah.
I got it.
Sorry, we're
Okay.
getting reoriented.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
That is where the driveway is.
So it's going to be right here.
Looks like it's already.
All right, so there's not been a solution offered up yet addressing that concern.
You were saying the center
Alright.
of the left elevation needs to be recessed.
Well, are the applicant,
Yeah.
sir, yeah, whoever was speaking for the applicant, I gather are y'all willing to work with staff to work this stuff out? I mean, the staff
I
could
mean,
kind of
we-
identify, you know, what the recommendation was if we grant it
Right,
and what the,
You know, this is part of working back with the staff, and I thought that the staff had received this. The architect submitted this Tuesday, and it said Wednesday these comments had to be in. So
okay,
the point being on, if you go back to the picture on my house, which is the house to the right, if you go look at right there,
right, the white one.
I think
yeah.
the hyphen that Rachel may be discussing goes in, but actually the porch comes out. So, I mean, you really can't see that portion of it from that lot or from my driveway. And, you know, so I think that there's a little bit of difference in the way it's designed.
Right, but I do sense at least you and staff have been working together, and it looks like you're still in process of working together. Maybe coming here was a little premature, but that's okay. All right, now I think that answers my
All
question.
right, I have a question for you.
Okay.
The fireplace, the chimney,
Right.
how's that going to be designed?
It's going to either be deleted entirely or it will be a ventless fireplace inside. So there won't be any need for a
I think
fireplace.
we took it off.
The problem with the problem with the fireplace, one was it interfered with usable space upstairs to put the chimney in and the cost of the chimney. I mean, these things, full masonry fireplace is very expensive, and so therein lies the need just to go back to the ventless where the outside doesn't have to go up above that very tall roof anyway.
Been a long day. I'm kind of.
I can understand.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I wouldn't have a problem making a motion with all of staff's recommendations included, but I am sympathetic to the need for the elevator in there for a child with disabilities. So just trying to think outside the box on how you could have that, but break up the massing a little bit. Is there any way to, and I guess the recommendation for recessing the center portion of that left elevation would be to break up the front and the back of the house, is that right?
Right.
Would that same effect be possible if you were to push, and there might not be room for this with the driveway, but could you push that center portion out a little bit further? Would that have the same effect? Because then you could still have room for the elevator, which is the big concern here, I think.
Well, looking at the floor plans, there would still be room for an elevator to, when you, if you pushed everything in a little bit, you would just lose some square footage in like the spaces of the, either the garden or the porch area. The elevator could, I mean, as far as I know, it could still be there, it's just they would lose square footage. Am I wrong?
All right, say hi, please state your name.
I'm Robin Brackett.
And do you swear to tell the truth?
Yeah, of course. And I'm the architect, and I don't, it is not possible, given without a major redesign, to push that center portion back behind the facade of the other two masses. I would like to argue that it doesn't need to be that way just because that's the way the house on the right is. The house on the left, even though it's not as long, it has a flat side, as you can see, that has no movement in it, that is visible from the driveway. I think this house, yes, it is a little bit longer, but I'm sorry, I'm looking at that and not you all. I think it's attractive. It fits in the neighborhood. I sent some pictures of some other houses in the historic district that aren't nearly as attractive, that have long, flat facades. So yes, this house doesn't have that center recess area like the one on the right, but that doesn't mean it's not appropriate for the neighborhood. It does have a porch in the middle, an open porch, that gives it some opening. So we would just, I would like to ask you to approve it as it is, because I feel it fits in the neighborhood and it's attractive.
You don't have room for a pool, right?
Pardon me?
You don't have room for a pool.
Yeah, a pool? Well, we have, with 40% lot coverage, we have almost 1,000 more square feet we can go. No.
I guess back to my original question, you may have answered, it's been a long meeting. If they did push that center portion out more, would that break up the massing, or Is that a no-go?
That's hard to say. We haven't explored that. I mean, Robin and I looked at pushing it back, but
It's hard to push it out more because of the driveway, the clearance needed for the driveway to get to the back. It is now 12 and a half feet off the property line. So it could not be pushed out. It could maybe be pushed out 6 inches, but I don't think that gets what you're driving for.
Right, right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any questions right now? Do you have anything? Okay. All right, thank you. Let me see where we are at.
My name's Wayne Smith. I live at 1231.
Oh, hold on. Are you a public, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Are we ready to start with public comments? Let me just make sure hold on just one second. Let me get my monologue in. We encourage those that would like to communicate via email to begin sending in letters and emails. You may email at cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov or on the web at publicinput.com/cocddrc-May 2022. For those wanting to leave a voicemail or speak live, call 855-925-2801. When prompted, please enter the meeting code 1993. Then press star 2 to begin leaving the voicemail. If you would like to speak live, press star 3. All right. We will now hear comments from anyone here in person. Thank you.
My name's Wayne Smith. I'm at 1231 Maiden Lane, which is the house on the left-hand side.
On the
of
left-hand
the subject
side?
house, yes.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this proceeding? All right.
So I was also the person who bought all of the property and subdivided it. And in that subdivision, I retained the architectural rights to approve both of the houses that were built subject after my house was built. And there's a letter to the homeowners that I have approved this plan from an architectural standpoint. I know that that is a private agreement and a deed restriction, and it doesn't have a standing in the public forum, but it's worth noting. Second of all, that let's face it, I'm the only one affected by the left-hand side of this property. There's already an 8-foot evergreen that's right at the property corner that helps block that. My wife and I have reviewed the plans from a personal standpoint also. We like the left-hand elevation very much. It breaks up plenty as far as we were concerned. My house is over 70 feet deep, and we have no breaks in that. And when we had our plans approved and worked with the staff, we worked through that, and there were no breaks in it. We used some trim details and some fenestration material pieces to accomplish that. So I think probably at least from the left-hand side of the elevation, maybe some forbearance is needed, especially with the unique situation with the Zieglers that are going to live in the house. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else in person who wanted to speak? Is there anybody else? All right, any comments in writing? Any voicemails or phone calls?
We don't have anything.
Nothing?
What?
Nothing.
We don't have anything. Sorry, this microphone is like.
yeah, and there was one comment received in writing prior to the meeting that was forwarded to you.
The one
all.
that was sent out, yes. Do you want to state who that was from?
Oh, yes, that was Michael Hughes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask staff. I know you've been over there assessing, looking. Do you feel you and the applicant can work together to an agreement?
I mean, if y'all feel differently about the massing or interpret it differently, that's fine. I'm happy to continue working with them maybe on some detailing of that center section.
Is this a time for comment from us too?
Yes, you can
Okay.
speak.
All right. Just
We're
confirming.
getting shorter and shorter.
I
Yes,
mean,
speak.
to me, the left elevation appears to have, a bit of a setback. And I agree with the applicant, that it's going to be difficult to see it from the road, given the depth of these houses already from the street. I'm inclined to say that, the way that the way it appears now, certainly seems within the guidelines or seems acceptable.
Any other commissioner want to comment? Okay, well, I gather we have been moved, we've done all public comment, and I guess we'd be at the point of a motion.
All right, I'll give it a go. I'd like to make a motion that 1235 Maiden Lane, request for a certificate of design and approval for new construction, be approved the way that the applicant submitted today.
Do you need to amend that to include the relevant staff recommendations? I think let's clarify that, because we didn't receive that. That came in
Okay.
after we received the official package, so I think, so I would recommend you make the motion, include the staff recommendations that you think are pertinent, and then
Okay.
note where you might be varying. Is that accurate, guys?
Yes, and please also note the section of the guidelines.
Yes, okay.
Okay. So you want me to start over?
Yes.
Sorry, bear with me, this is my first one, so. I'd like to make a motion to approve 1235 Maiden Lane, request for a certificate of design approval for new construction, and be in keeping with staff's recommendations, complies with Section 3 of the Melrose Heights Oak Lawn Guidelines, and recommends granting a certificate of design approval with the following conditions. Windows on the house to be aluminum-clad windows with exterior muttons. Front door design to be submitted to staff for final approval. Left elevation be designed with a recessed central section to better break up the massing along this side. Modern chimney be designed to reflect a more historic/traditional chimney form, and all other details defer to staff.
All right, I'm gonna help you out on that one. So
Okay.
you read the motion exactly how they've stated it,
So if I want to get rid of one of those bullets,
or if you want to, if you want to amend how it's worded, I guess we need to specify that.
okay.
So amend in a second.
Excuse me?
You need to second it and then amend it.
Then we need a second, then amendment? Okay.
Okay.
All right, let me get a second. Thank you for keeping us on track over there, guys.
I'll second that motion with an amendment.
That is allowed.
Okay, great. Yes, I'll second the motion with the amendment that the left elevation as submitted be approved, and that the condition with regard to the chimney be referred to the motion contingent upon the applicant removing the chimney from the design submitted to staff.
And if you could add, please, which submittal, perhaps the submittal made today.
Yeah. Nobody's making it easy today. Yeah, the submittal received at the meeting today.
The submittal received at today's meeting.
Team, did we
Please
hit
second that one, too?
everything? Okay,
Second.
all right.
All right. Mr. Broom,
Yes.
Ms. Jaco,
Yes.
Mr. Salibi,
Yes.
and Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right. And
Thank
under
you.
other business,
Thank you for bearing with us on that one, guys. Yeah, that was,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
oh, Bob doesn't even want to know if there's other business, right?
if you can hold on one second, I was just going to mention that we do have two members who were appointed at City Council Tuesday night. So we will be hopefully have 2 more folks up here for our next meeting.
2 more?
Yeah, that's great.
Adam, right up here? You're going to be up here?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so with that, now we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
In a second?
Second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.